People who have passed away are not finding peace. Rather, they are working. We've been told that death is the finish line, a final sleep, a silent void where nothing matters anymore. You live a good life, you go to heaven, you live a bad one. You're damned, that's the story we've been given. But what if it's wrong? What if the souls who've left their bodies aren't asleep at all, but more alive, more aware, more purposeful than ever? What if instead of drifting in some endless sleep, they are learning, growing, even guiding those of us who are still alive? Edgar Cayce, once dismissed as nothing more than a strange man who spoke while in a trance, offered a view of the afterlife that shattered everything we thought we knew. Through hundreds of deep, mysterious readings, he painted a picture of life after death, not as a place of reward or punishment, but as a realm of growth, choice, and transformation. A place where the soul awakens, not disappears. And if Cayce was right, then everything we believed about death has been shaped by fear designed to control us, to keep us small, obedient, and unaware of who we really are. But you're here now, you're beginning to see beyond the veil. Let's tear that veil down. Edgar Cayce didn't look like someone who would challenge the spiritual beliefs of the modern world. He was a quiet man from rural Kentucky, humble and soft-spoken. No temples, no robes, just a man who would lie down, close his eyes, and speak words that shook the foundations of everything we thought we knew. Not just about life, but about what comes after it. They called him the sleeping prophet, but the truths he revealed were anything but dreams. He offered an image of the afterlife that was not metaphysical fluff or religious guilt hit. Rather, it was something that was structured, intellectual, and surprisingly bustling with activity. Cayce asserts that the soul does neither disappear into a state of peaceful sleep or find itself in an unending state of torment when the physical body passes away. Eventually, it enters a realm that he referred to as the astral plane, which is not composed of clouds or fire, but rather of energy, introspection, and education. This astral world, according to Cayce, is a region that is similar to the Earth in many ways, yet it is devoid of any physical distractions. The place is not a holding pen or a waiting room. Rather, it is a continuation, and the events that take place there are not chaotic or fantastical. Rather, they are review, recalibration, and frequently healing. When souls are in the astral realm, they are not simply lingering. Rather, they are participating in something more profound. This is the place where spirits start to process the life that they have just lived, according to Cayce's description. Not in order to be punished or glorified, but rather to get an understanding of the events that molded them. They reflect, they process, and they revisit those times. Not via judgment, but by direct awareness. He spoke of spirits experiencing the ripple repercussions of their decisions. He said this does not occur through judgment. Imagine that you are able to experience the influence that your actions had on other people. Not because one person tells you that it was appropriate or inappropriate, but because you saw it for yourself. The truth is the source of that kind of learning. Guilt is not the source of that kind of learning. Cayce stated that while some souls travel through this process expeditiously, others remain in this state not because they are compelled to do so, but rather because they are not yet prepared to move on. They might have feelings of attachment to particular people, places, or regrets, and some of them might not even be entirely aware that they have passed on. Due to the fact that the astral realm is so close to the world that we are familiar with, it comes into contact with our reality and is barely beyond the range of what is normally perceived. This is the reason why, according to Cayce, some spirits continue to attempt to communicate with living people, not to terrify them, but rather to direct them, to help them find a solution to a problem or to finish something that was left incomplete. This is the point at which things start to feel awkward. In light of the fact that if Cayce is correct and his hundreds of trance readings indicate that he might be, then we have been given a story about death that is extremely lacking in detail, not only by religion, but also by society, by education, and most importantly, by culture itself. We have been taught to view death as a conclusion, which causes us to cease thinking about what occurs beyond it. As a result of the fact that it is simpler to influence your today, when you assume that nothing will happen after this, keeping you numb, submissive, and terrified is simpler than anything else. However, if the soul persisted and continued to develop, then all of a sudden, the stakes of this existence would appear to be completely different. All of the decisions echo. Any interaction will cause ripples. Moreover, this is where things start to get even more intriguing, mainly due to the fact that some of Cayce's most contentious findings, such as what happens to particular souls who oppose change or how soul groups function, were never intended to be accessible to the general public. Several of them, in point of fact, are too volatile to be discussed openly. For this reason, we have discreetly placed them within Insights Academy, our complimentary newsletter where we go more deeply than we ever could here. If you sign up using the link provided in the description, you will be granted immediate access to the free ebook version of The Kibber Lion. For a short period of time, Cayce's afterlife is not a make-believe world. Rather, it is a structure, one in which the capacity for free will is unending and spiritual development is unending. In his description of the astral world, he referred to it as a school of its own, one that mirrors the teachings of the earthly realm and provides preparation for what is to come. Due to the fact that you are the only person who can decide what happens next, it is not possible for a cosmic court to sentence you to either happiness or fire. Consciousness evolution and the ever-present possibility of advancement are the only things that exist. It is possible that this straightforward reality is more liberating than any afterlife fairy tale that has ever been written. The concept of judgment appears to be one of the parts of what occurs after death that is most frequently misunderstood. For generations, people have been telling us that once we pass away, we would be put on trial. We see a man with a beard sitting on a throne, a raging pit below us, and scales that assess the balance between sin and virtue. It is either pardoned or damned that you are. Edgar Cayce's readings, on the other hand, provided something that was less theatrical and significantly more meaningful. Instead of describing a court, he described a mirror. Not a day for judgment, but rather for review. However, rather than being chastised or commended, the soul is provided with the opportunity to see itself. This is not through the eyes of a god, but rather through the lens of the unadulterated truth. Approximately a short time after the soul has entered the astral realm, Cayce claims that this review goes into effect. It is not a forced or ceremonial act. Rather, it is a natural occurrence. When the soul is drawn inside, it is similar to a river that flows back to its origin. It does not experience the clarity that is associated with condemnation. It is not in a flash or a montage that you revisit significant moments from your life. Rather, it is in a manner that allows you to experience the full emotional and spiritual consequence of the decisions you have made. To add insult to injury, you are able to experience it from both sides. The people whose lives you touched are able to see not only what you did, but also how it made them feel. They are experiencing happiness, pain, and perplexity. On a daily basis, you act as if it were your own. On the contrary, this is progress, not cruelty. When it comes to comprehending cause and consequence on the most fundamental level, it is the soul. There is no voice resonating from above, nor is there an angel wagging their finger. The only thing that matters is you, your experiences, and the truth that you might have been too preoccupied or terrified to perceive when you were still living. The importance of alignment was underlined by Cayce, who stated that this process is not about shame. When the soul aligns itself with a deeper understanding of who it truly ironed and what it came here to achieve, this transformation takes place. So this is where things start to get serious. In other words, if your life does not come to an end in judgment, but rather in understanding, then death is not about feeling guilty, but rather about growing. It is not that you are being punished, rather you are being prepared. The soul is able to identify where it has gone off track through this evaluation, which permits it to not suffer, but rather to correct its trajectory. This may mean recovering from past traumatic experiences. It could mean making the decision to come back in a different life, to finish the teachings that were left incomplete. It might also entail guiding other people from a non-physical plane, assisting them in being able to avoid making the same mistakes that you did. However, the most significant revelation that Cayce made was that there is nothing concealed in the afterlife, not from other people, but from within yourself. In the astral realm, there is no such thing as a mask. The lies you told, the stories you believed, and the reasons you relied on to justify your actions are not valid in that context. Due to the fact that you are unable to escape your own consciousness, which is the most challenging aspect for some people. Instead of being judged by an outside power, you will have to look yourself in the eye and see what you have been trying to avoid seeing for the entirety of your life. This is the reason why so many people continue to cling to straightforward tales about death. Heaven and hell are simpler, more transparent, and more binary than other concepts. Nevertheless, Cayce's version places responsibility back on your shoulders, but it does so in a way that is not a burden, but rather a gift. Since it indicates that your development will never cease, the meaning of this is that you always have the ability to adapt, to realign, and to climb. Even after you have passed away, you continue to be the narrative's creator. In addition, if this is the case, then the purpose of life is not to escape being punished. Rather, it is to get ready for clarity. It is about making decisions right now that you will be pleased to look back on in the future. The reason for this is not because someone is keeping score, but rather because the true judge has always been your higher self. The version of yourself that sees beyond ego, fear, and shame. The question that arises then is, are you living a life that you will be prepared to witness again in the future? It is not as far away as we believe that the dead are. As far as Edgar Cayce is concerned, when we pass away, we do not disappear into some other parallel dimension. We slide into a reality that makes contact with this one just beyond the limits of what the majority of people are able to comprehend. This reality is beyond our reach. According to him, it was the astral plane. A lively conscious space that is full with movement, energy, and intention, rather than a dreamlike paradise or a punishment that looks like something out of a nightmare. This is the zone in between. There is a difference between life between shapes and between different degrees of consciousness, and this middle ground is more alive than the majority of the world that we see around us. After a person's physical death, Cayce believed that the majority of souls traveled to the astral realm. It is the place where you will begin the process of reorientation, make connections with other souls from your group, and unpack the contents of your previous life. But this is not purgatory, nor is it limbo. Neither of these things are true. This place is a place where souls are moving sometimes in a calm manner, and other times in a chaotic manner, depending on how they left this world and what they brought with them for the journey. The condition of your consciousness is the one factor that determines the nature of your experience in this location, which is comprised of multiple layers and varying degrees of vibration. There is no such thing as being placed in a dimension that you resonate into. The energy imprint of their most recent incarnation is carried by souls as they arrive at this location. This encompasses recollections, feelings, beliefs, and even wounds that have not been healed. The unresolved aspects do not disappear by some mystical process. In this place, they are the things that you can work through. According to Cayce, it is comparable to entering a school of mirrors. Whenever you turn around, you are able to see yourself. Your routines, your attachments, and the lessons which you have not yet completed were reflected back to you. Certain spirits are willing to go through the process. Some people put up a fight. Cayce argued that the distinction is what decides how long you stay there and what happens after that. Additionally, there are two souls from your previous lifetimes, individuals, you love people you harmed, and members of your soul group. There are also other people there. Our reincarnation occurs in clusters, which are groupings of souls that mature together over the course of multiple incarnations, as Cayce revealed. It is possible that you will not remember them by their previous identities, yet you will feel them because the connection is not limited to recollection. The astral plane allows for reconnection, on occasion to finish lessons and on other occasions to assist others in rising. These are not merely get-togethers. Rather, they are combined efforts. In his words, spiritual advancement is a collaborative endeavor. And here is what presents the greatest challenge to the way that we think about death. The living are still being influenced by certain spirits that are in the astral realm, not in the form of ghosts or specters, but rather as presences of energy. They mutter thoughts, influence feelings, and force decisions to be made. Cayce was of the belief that the deceased might serve as guiders, messengers, and even sources of inspiration. There are certain individuals who have thoughts that appear out of nowhere. Nowhere could possibly be the astral realm according to Cayce's interpretation. As opposed to being made of brick and mortar, the boundary between the living and the dead is made of vibration. At times, as your mental condition improves, you may find that you are able to tune into them without even being aware of it. Nevertheless, not every soul moves on in a hurry. There are some people who cling to the things they have left behind. Cayce issued a warning against what he referred to as earthbound souls, which are souls who continue to harbor attachments to their previous life owing to a fear preoccupation or unfinished business affairs. It is common for these souls to be perplexed, disoriented, or in denial that they have passed over. They continue to remain stuck, not because they are being held captive by an external force, but rather because they have not allowed themselves to accept the transformation. It's not a form of punishment, it's about resistance, and even in this case, free will wins out. There is no such thing as a fantasy kingdom or a religious mythology on the astral plane. Rather, it is a domain of profound introspection, energetic contact, and ongoing spiritual instruction. And Cayce highlighted that it is just as real as anything that we experience on Earth. It simply operates on a frequency that we have been conditioned to ignore. Because of this training, we are unable to connect with the very reality, because you would stop considering death to be the conclusion of your life if you knew that the dead were not far away, if you knew that they could still educate, still guide, and still feel. You cease to be afraid of it. And what about a populace that has no fear of dying? The demographic in question is one that is difficult to manage. However, it is possible that the astral is not merely a riddle that needs to be answered. Rather, it may be a message that serves as a reminder that everything continues, that our lives are not a series of random occurrences, but rather chapters in a lengthy journey with a specific goal in mind. And if the souls that you have loved throughout your life are there observing, working, and developing, then you are not alone. You have never been. You have been given a reassuring illusion if you believe that the afterlife is a place where one can relax for all of eternity. Edgar Cayce asserts that the deceased do not exist in a state of bliss or in a state of perpetual stillness. They are engaged in work that may be invisible to us, yet it is the same as if it were real. They are busy and purposeful. It is not the end of effort that death signifies. Rather, it signifies a change in the meaning of effort. There is no halt placed on the soul. Rather, it continues on with its mission. This mission broadens in many different situations. In the post-death reality that Cayce depicted, spirits are not merely passive viewers, rather they are active participants. A few of them come back for a short time to help loved ones navigate nightmares, gut feelings, or those peculiar moments in which you feel as though someone is watching you, not out of fear, but out of a sense of peaceful familiarity. Others make their presence known on more subtle levels, exerting an influence on the formation of ideas, innovations, or shifts in communal energy. It has been instilled in us to disregard these nudges, to describe them as coincidences or as the product of our imagination. However, Cayce argued that they are quite real and that they were done on purpose. If you find yourself feeling unexpectedly shielded in a crisis, if inspiration strikes you like lightning, or if you hear a voice in your head that stops you just before you make a mistake, it might be someone who is no longer physically present in this world, but has not removed themselves from your life permanently. According to Cayce, there are certain souls that make the decision to continue their soul mission from the other side, particularly those souls that were already participating in service when they were incarnate. Your desire to help others heal, guide, or instruct others does not go away when you take your last breath. If you have spent your entire life doing these things, in point of fact, it might amplify. When the soul is liberated from the constraints of the physical body, it is able to more freely direct its energy. This assistance is not limited in any way. Souls have the ability to collaborate and construct networks, which Cayce referred to as councils, in order to exert influence over the happenings on Earth from a covert location. Instead of acting as puppet masters, they serve as stabilizers. Those who assist. When anarchy is about to take over, there are hands that are invisible that are gently altering the course. According to what Cayce suggested, this is especially true during times of communal transition or times of global crises. The dead are not merely observing, rather they are taking action whenever it is feasible, by use of energetic influence rather than by miraculous occurrences. They plant ideas in minds that are prepared to receive them for the first time. People who are on the verge of collapsing are inspired to have bravery by them. They provide assistance by weaving it through the invisible fabric that binds all of us together. Furthermore, they do not do it for the purpose of glory or reward. Rather, they do it because the actual nature of the soul is growth, and growth does not cease when a person dies. This period is also used by some souls to start making preparations for their eventual return. Yes, they engage in training, reflection, and study. Get ready for your future lives. According to Cayce, Earth is a school, and individuals who take the decision to return there frequently spend their time honing the skills they will require for the subsequent round. Reviewing ancient karmic patterns, re-establishing connections with members of their soul group in order to coordinate incarnations, or collaborating with souls that have reached a higher level of evolution in order to prepare the circumstances of their future mission are all examples of what this implies. There is no such thing as happenstance. You do not simply roll the dice and end up in a body. There is a purpose behind each placement, and there is an intention behind everything. On the other hand, there are souls that have finished a significant portion of their mission on Earth. The way that Cayce defined these creatures was that they functioned more like teachers or guides who were still concerned with Earth, but were no longer bound by it. In this way, they function as bridges between different dimensions. Those who are awakening, those who are beginning to question what they have been taught, are frequently the ones that they are drawn to. It is not necessary for them to impose themselves on your life. Rather, they wait until you begin to pay attention to them, until your frequency begins to coincide with theirs. At that point, the link gets stronger, and in that moment, the advice becomes more apparent. When we read the obituary, we are made to feel that the deceased are no longer present and that their influence has come to an end. On the other hand, Cayce asserts that the truth is not only more profound, but also significantly more reassuring. In spite of the fact that they are not visible, the deceased are not inaccessible. They are still here with us, continuing to work and providing direction. It is possible that we will come to the realization that we have never been alone in our development if we keep the noise at bay and pay attention. In life and death, and at any point in time, never, there are still some individuals who find the concept of reincarnation to be unsettling. It may sound like a punishment to some people, as well as an infinite cycle of lives. Deaths and rebirths with no opportunity to escape in sight. The readings of Edgar Cayce, on the other hand, completely disrupt that narrative. The concept of reincarnation, in his view, is not a type of curse. This is a decision. It is not like a prisoner serving time that the spirit is being coerced back into the physical world. It is coming back because it desires to acquire knowledge, to develop, and to progress. The planet Earth is not a jail as Cayce described it. Rather, it is a classroom. A challenging, sometimes excruciating, and frequently breathtaking classroom in which the soul is in the process of remembering who it truly is. A significant amount of what we have been taught is thrown off by this concept. This indicates that you did not make a sudden appearance in this location. You are not a one-time accidental occurrence or a lucky ticket for the biological lottery. You have a purpose for being here, a choice made by you, molded by you, and crafted to meet the requirements of your soul at the next stage. When this existence comes to an end, you will make another decision. If there is more to learn, more to resolve, or more to experience, you will come back. It is not because someone sends you back, but rather because your spirit recognizes the importance of finishing the academic program. According to Cayce, every life is an opportunity, a new environment, a different body, and a chance to experience the other side of the coin to what one has previously experienced. Perhaps you reached a point in your life where you were wealthy and wanted to learn humility. You could have been icy and rational in the past, but you need to acquire compassion today. It is possible that you have given up on your potential, and now you are returning to claim it. You should not view the situations that you attract as punishments, but rather as invites. If you put up a fight against them, they will continue to do so. On the other hand, once you see them for what they really are, lessons disguised as challenges, they begin to change, and you too do it. Is that karma? It is not what people believe it to be. On the contrary, it is not some sort of divine scorekeeper or mystical revenge mechanism. According to Cayce, karma is nothing more than the consciousness of cause and consequence creating a balance for itself. It is the persistent residue of previous decisions, both positive and negative, that is looking for resolution. It is not that you are punished for your crimes. Rather, you are forced to endure the results of your acts in order to develop. And that's it. Also, if you have caused harm to other people, You can find yourself in a scenario where you are able to experience the same agony, but not as a form of punishment, but rather as a result of understanding. Empathy, not retribution, is the true focus here. Which of these is the most radical? It is not necessary for you to return. Clearly, Cayce made that point. Being reincarnated is not required. Even after death, you continue to have free will. If you have progressed beyond what the planet Earth can provide, you are free to move on. Additionally, there are other dimensions, other classrooms and other universes. But if you continue to have the impression that there is something here for you, whether it is unfinished work, a soul contract, or simply the draw of coming back to assist other people, you should pick Earth once more. Additionally, with each return comes an increased level of awareness, clarity, and accountability. It has nothing to do with pain. It's all about attitude, skill, and mastery. Cayce also made the observation that certain souls reincarnate not for themselves, but for other people with the purpose of assisting others who are still lost in the fog, providing to them and guiding them. It is not because they are clearing karma that these souls often have difficult lives. Rather, it is because they are holding space and functioning as anchors of light in a world that frequently forgets why it is here. In addition, a great many of these individuals forget until they are jolted awake by something. An instance of bereavement, a profound dream, or a discourse that is too intense to bear. Something implies that you have already done something, that you have chosen this, and that you will pick it once more. The question is, if reincarnation is not a curse, then what exactly is it? It is a reflection of the degree to which your soul is dedicated to development. When you do this, it demonstrates that you are not frightened to confront yourself over and over again until you have outgrown the urge to see yourself again. You then proceed not to rest, but to serve in more elevated ways after you have accomplished this. The life you are living, the breath you are taking, and the time you are in are all sacred and chosen while you are here. Furthermore, Cayce's statement that you were never compelled to be here is perhaps the most empowering thing she has ever stated. You asked for it because you were confident in your ability to deal with it. There are some souls that do not return to Earth. Others graduate. Even after a few cycles of reincarnation, Edgar Cayce asserts that the journey of the soul does not come to an end when the individual actually passes away. In the higher realms that lie beyond this level, there are vast and intricate aspects of consciousness. In these realms, the emphasis turns from individual development to the evolution of an entire group. These are not the heavens of mythology, which are replete with harps and halos. They are states of awareness that are alive and breathing, and they are places where souls function with clarity, compassion, and a sense of global responsibility. The question that need to be asked in these areas is no more, what can I gain, but rather, how can I serve? These higher planes were described by Cayce as stages of progress towards spiritual maturity. In the same way that a child eventually outgrows elementary school, the soul eventually passes beyond Earth when it has mastered what it came to study. Moreover, once it has, it is compelled to serve something that is more significant than itself. Providing assistance to people who are still on Earth, assisting in the development of planetary consciousness, or making a contribution to the coordination and growth of energy across the cosmos are all examples of the numerous ways in which this service might be rendered. Although it may sound optimistic, Cayce did not intend for this to be a daydream. According to him, this was merely the next logical step in the journey of the soul to progress. It's what occurs when you stop making an effort to learn new things and instead become an embodiment of wisdom. When souls reach these higher levels, they are no longer burdened by the emotional baggage or egoic turmoil that they carried during their incarnated incarnations. The absence of anxiety, scarcity, and competitiveness is not present. On a cellular level, these souls are aware of the fact that everything is interconnected, that your healing is mine, and that mine is yours. With regard to these realms, Cayce proposed that communication is telepathic. Time is nonlinear, and intention is the driving force behind the creation of reality. Deception and manipulation are not necessary in this situation. This is the language of truth. Spirits are in perfect accord with one another, moving forward with a common goal that goes beyond individuality. Here is the portion that completely reframes all that we consider about the development of our spirituality. Evolution never comes to an end. Souls continue to expand even in the highest realms, but the focus switches as they do so. Rather of mending old wounds or gaining knowledge through comparison, they engage in what Cayce referred to as cosmic service. Depending on the circumstances, this could mean assisting younger souls in navigating challenging transitions, leading planetary movements from behind the veil, or taking part in the formation of totally new realities. Not only are these souls not drifting in an endless state of serenity, but they are peace themselves, and they move through it with clarity and meaning. The way in which we think about the meaning of our own lives is altered as a result of this concept, which is what gives it such impact. The fact that these higher beings were once confused, hurt, and searching, just like us, indicates that we are progressing in the same direction. It indicates that enlightenment is not for a select few individuals only. Over the course of a lifetime, it is constructed one choice at a time. There are also those who are currently operating in higher planes, who may have been in the same position as you are right now, wondering if any of this has any significance. In addition, Cayce was of the opinion that they are still present among us, not as superior beings to be revered, but rather as equal souls who simply remember more. They are not receptive to begging, but rather to frequency. They do not do so by the use of force, but rather through invitation. You will be able to meet them halfway when you raise your consciousness via the cultivation of compassion, truth, and alignment. They will respond to you when you do it, not by the use of fireworks, but rather through the gradual blossoming of wisdom that seems to originate from within you on a quiet level, because that is true in a lot of respects. Because of this, Cayce cautioned against idolizing spiritual figures, whether they were real or non-physical objects. It is not about hierarchy that true spiritual progress occurs. Rather, it is about expansion. The fact that someone has achieved a higher level of awareness does not necessarily mean that they are superior to you. In other words, they have been on the path for a longer period of time, have a better memory, and are now serving, and so will you as well. Instead of being obligated to do so, it is out of love. Because if you have a clear understanding of who you truly are, service becomes less of a burden. It is the most natural item that can be found anywhere in the globe. This is not a cosmic ladder that we are climbing in order to leave Earth. We are not returning to the same life, but rather to the same truth, articulated on a greater level, despite the fact that we are learning, remembering, and returning. Everyone on Earth is a student. While there are a great number of others, the lesson is consistently the same. Learn to love yourself and others and serve something that is greater than both of you. Furthermore, once you have made that your way of being, you will no longer have a desire to seek for the higher realms. The search for you will already have begun. In the event that everything that Edgar Cayce indicated regarding life after death is accurate, and if souls continue to develop, guide, reincarnate, and serve from higher realms, then why is this information not widely known? Is it not included in the textbooks? The question is, why don't churches discuss it? Why is it that you feel as though you had to unearth this truth by chance? As if you were discovering a secret message written behind a picture that had been hanging in your living room the entire time. Due to the fact that you were never intended to know. To put it another way, not in the world that has been constructed. Some of the most powerful institutions that are currently in existence are brought down by Cayce's observations. Fear is necessary to keep you in line, and religious teaching, political control, educational systems, and consumer culture all rely on the same fundamental belief that death is the end, and that fear is necessary to keep you controlled. If you believe that death is the end of everything, then everything you accomplish in this life will be fraught with strain. It is your only chance to succeed. The only way to obtain a prize is to obey. You are obligated to keep the regulations. It is necessary for you to feel dread because fear makes you predictable. And predictability is the primary factor in achieving control. However, if you fully embrace the idea that the soul is immortal, active, and evolving, then everything will change. If you comprehend that death is not the end, then everything will change. It is as if dread suddenly loses its hold. As soon as you enter survival mode, you stop making decisions. You give up looking for approval from other people. The structures that gain from your quiet are no longer able to win your respect. The moment you begin to think for yourself, you begin to think for individuals who think for themselves. They are difficult to regulate, difficult to buy from, and difficult to program. Because of this, the majority of Cayce's work is either entirely disregarded, mocked, or buried. He did not preach any one faith. In no way was he attempting to win people over. The only thing he was doing was repeating what he had seen over and over again. People would ask questions about their health, relationships, spiritual purpose, or the loss of loved ones over the course of hundreds of trance readings, and the answers would consistently lead to the same realities again and again. There is a great deal more to reality than what we have been told. The soul never dies, and the choices you take have an impact on the world. Nevertheless, this kind of reality does not sell very well. This cannot be contained in a tweet. People are not kept in a state of desperation. In other words, the world is trying to distract you with noise rather than teaching you. Give it some thought. At the moment of your birth, you are inundated with messages about the things that are important to you, such as money, fame, power, and beauty. In a game that you never agreed to play, you are the one who is being told to succeed, to win, and to advance. At the same time that you are being told what to fear and what to desire, there is a calm drumbeat that is playing in the background, and this is all you have. There is just one opportunity in life. Don't make a mess of it. What exactly does that get you? It causes you to feel uneasy. It prevents you from growing larger. You will continue to chase after illusions. On the other hand, what happens when that illusion is broken? When you realize that you have lived before, that you will live again, and that there are some people you have known and other people you have not yet met who are walking with you. Even now, just beyond the veil, you make the decision to cease playing the game. When you begin to ask more insightful inquiries, you begin to recall the reason that you came to this location in the first place. The knowledge in question poses a threat not because it is harmful, but rather because it opens up new possibilities. In doing so, it poses a danger to the narrative that obedience is synonymous with virtue, that authority is the most knowledgeable, and that spirituality must be channeled via institutions. Contrary to what Cayce's readings suggest, when it comes to greater knowledge, inner truth, and the very forces that shape our reality, they say that you have direct access to all of these things. And once you come to that realization, you transform into something powerful that cannot be controlled by fear. The reason for this is that this information has been relegated to the margins. Due to the fact that it is not true, it is not considered fringe. Due to the fact that it is disruptive, it is considered fringe. The machinery is thrown off by it. This gives the individual more power. This serves as a reminder that you were never simply made of flesh and bone, that you were never simply a name, a job, or a belief system that was passed down to you. Consciousness is what you are. Memory can be found in you. For the time being, you are intention clothed in skin, and you are here to recollect something that you have always known but have managed to forget on purpose. Once you have remembered anything, you will never be able to forget it again. In light of the fact that the truth possesses a frequency, and once it has resonated, it cannot be ignored. This is the reason why it is concealed. Not because it is deficient, but because it is powerful. And those who profit from your misunderstanding would prefer that you never discover it in the first place. You did, however, you have arrived. You're paying attention. You are recalling the past. After you have realized that death is not an end, but rather a continuation, a change, and a return to a deeper layer of truth, you will no longer be able to live the same manner on earth. You won't want to do that, because all of a sudden the things that you considered to be of the utmost value, such as the work title, the ideal body, and the day of social approbation, become less significant. In addition, something else begins to develop at this point. Without ambiguity, this is the purpose. An unshakable conviction that this life is not arbitrary, that it is not pointless, and that it is not in any way insignificant. Edgar Cayce did not merely describe what occurs after you, beloved, have given us the secret to life differently while we are still here on earth, mainly due to the fact that if the soul continues to develop after death, it indicates that the job you are doing right now does not end when your heart stops. It extends into the future. There are reverberations that extend beyond this life, including the discussions you are having, the anxieties you are confronting, the healing you are doing, and the love you are learning to give and accept. Each and every option is incorporated into the course of study, part of a larger storyline that spans multiple lifetimes and generations. You are not simply responding to a chaotic reality. Rather, you are taking part in a journey from a conscious perspective. This knowledge does not make life more difficult. Rather, it elevates everything to a spiritual level. The way in which we relate to everything is altered as a result of Cayce's conception of the soul as an ongoing conscious presence. All of our sorrow, our aspirations, and our connections. When someone is lost, it does not suggest that they have disappeared. Rather, it indicates that they have moved to a different state. They are carrying on, but they are doing so on a different wavelength. Having this knowledge also changes the way that we grieve. As opposed to bringing about closure, it creates a space for connection. We are able to communicate with them in a manner that is respectful rather than one of desperation. Simply because they are not merely observing from a distance, the majority of the time they are strolling right next to you, but they are not visible to you. It alters the way in which you perceive your own suffering. The traumas, the heartbreaks, and the breakdowns are no longer considered to be punishments. Rather, they are now considered to be chances. When I say that everything happens for a purpose, I don't mean it in a frivolous sense. On a more fundamental soul-level level, yet in a way that recognizes your capacity to develop as a result of the things you go through. Instead of being something you have to endure, life begins to take on a form that you have the ability to shape. Stop asking me why this is happening to me I don't understand, as well as begin to inquire, what exactly am I being shown here? Although it may appear to be a minor change, this shift is the first step toward mastery. You also begin to understand that you are not in this location by chance. You did not simply find yourself in this body, in this family, or during this era by chance. This was your choice. Alternatively, your soul did, at the very least. Perhaps it is not for comfort, but rather for expansion. Remembering something is the reason you came here, to deviate from a pattern, to instruct, to attend to love more deeply than you have ever desired to love before. Also, if you have spent the most of your life feeling out of place, as if you have had homesickness for a location that you are unable to identify, it is likely because a portion of you is aware that this is not the first time you have experienced this feeling. Moreover, remembering is the most important thing, due to the fact that the instant you become aware of the truth about your nature, the system begins to lose its hold on you. It is time to quit living in fear. You give up living your life on autopilot. You decide to relinquish the pursuit of objectives that were never yours to begin with. You begin to inquire, what is in fact true for me? What is it that I know to be my truth? What actions would I do if I did not feel fear? There is more to Cayce's teachings than merely what happens to you once you pass away. While you are here, they will teach you how to live your life, keeping one's honor. Being conscious of it in light of the realization that every activity contains some amount of energy. Additionally, that energy stays with you once this life is over. This is not about being flawless in any way. Keeping oneself awake is the key, being present, making a conscious effort. In addition, if you have made it this far, it is likely that you have already begun. You have already started to have more doubts for your memory to remove the covering or veil. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. It is impossible to turn back once you have caught a sight of the truth. With all sincerity, why would you want to do that? You didn't come here to be among the crowd. You come here in order to get some rest. Okay, so here we are. As you stand on the precipice of something that the majority of people spend their entire life attempting to avoid, what is the reality of death, and not the version that is told in a dramatic manner and is imposed by religion? The clinical nothingness that is being sold by materialist science is not included. Still, there is something more substantial. This is more lively. It was not Edgar Cayce who stated that the soul dies. According to him, it grows. Not a single word was spoken about eventual destinations. He did mention the stages, the realms themselves. This pertains to evolution. If that is the case, and if the voyage continues for a very long time, when this body is no longer in existence, then we have been asking the wrong question the whole time. If I were to pass away, what would happen to me? What is it that I am doing with my life that will have an effect on what is going to happen next? Your perspective on what is significant is rewired when you consider the concept that death is a transition rather than a finish. Suddenly, it is not about making the best of this life in an effort to avoid damnation or leave a legacy. It is not about trying to survive as long as possible. It's about turning up with a purpose in mind. Making preparations is not about being afraid. Rather, it is about doing so with the same reverence that you would bring to the act of packing your luggage before entering a holy shrine. Due to the fact that you will depart from this location, that is not a danger at all. A warranty is provided. However, the manner in which you part with what you have brought with you and what you have modified while you are here is totally up to you. Cayce demonstrated to us that our existence on this planet is not a coincidence. It is not a random occurrence. Meaning is not lacking in it. Lessons to learn, people to find, and shadows to confront are all things that you brought into this life with you. Every step you take toward greater awareness, healing, and inner truth not only transforms your personal journey, it also shapes the energy you leave behind. You're not just living for yourself. The way you live ripples outward, affecting your soul group, your ancestors, and even those you may never meet in this life, but have crossed paths with in another. This is exactly what the souls of the departed are doing right now. They haven't stopped evolving. They're still learning, still loving, still moving closer to their truest essence. Just like you, they're not finished yet. The work continues beyond what we call the end. Because what we often see as the end is really just a doorway, one chapter in a far more expansive story. Maybe it's time to stop fearing death and start seeing it as a reflection, a mirror that reveals who we are and who we're becoming. The more you understand what lies beyond this life, the more powerfully you can shape it now and later. This isn't just about what happens after you die. It's about tomorrow and the next day, and every moment you're still breathing. You're beginning to remember truths that once lay hidden, truths that bring with them a sacred responsibility. Not the kind that burdens you, but the kind that lifts you up. So honor that knowing, heal what you've been avoiding. It's already walking beside you. And love as though it's the only thing worth holding on to. Because in many ways it is. And if you're ready to go deeper, we invite you to join our free newsletter, Insights Academy. For a limited time, you'll also receive a free digital copy of the Kabbalion, a profound resource of ancient wisdom. We can't fully share here. It's more than just an email. It's a map. But even the best maps are useless unless you understand where your soul is headed and why want to keep going. Click the video link to continue this journey, and if this message touched you, let us know in the comments. Your voice matters,